Hello, Earthlings. Um, Here we're going to do a brief introduction to the Earthling function. Now, in order to have warfare, you have to convince two groups of people that it's worthwhile to kill each other. Otherwise, warfare can't occur. So that is our premise. The Earthling function is a tool that we can use to hopefully solve the problem of Earthling versus Earthling warfare. So let's look at the conflict in the Middle East as an example. We have a dividing line with two sides, and this dividing line is used to convince the sides that warfare is necessary. So, Israel versus Palestine, for instance. You can convince Israelis that they should be killing Palestinians. You can convince Palestinians that they should be killing Israelis based on the history of the region, the history of conflict. It represents a divisor. Same thing with Judaism versus Islam. 1400 years of conflict between the two. This can be used as a dividing point to convince people to kill each other. Western versus Arabic, Western sphere of influence versus the Arabic sphere of influence. Progressive versus conservative, democracy versus theocracy. All of these points of division can and are used to convince people to kill other people. What the Earthling function seeks to do is to recognize that all of these are sub-identities, meaning that if you're an Israeli, that is a sub-identity because you are an Earthling first. You are an Earthling prior to being an Israeli. You are an Earthling prior to being a Jew or a Muslim or living in the Western sphere of influence or the Arabic sphere of influence. You are an Earthling prior to being progressive or conservative. You are an Earthling prior to believing democracy or theocracy. So what the Earthling function does is it applies our primary identity, to this equation. And when this happens, all of these sub-identities are overridden by the primary identity, which is Earthling. In any case, doesn't matter if you're American, Russian, Jewish, Chinese, black, white, brown, Indian, gay, straight, capitalist, communist, he, her, she, they, them. Any sub-identity is overridden by our Earthling identity, which we all share. This is objectively true. This is known a priori. This is objective. It cannot be argued that an Arabic identity or a Jewish identity is primary to our Earthling identity. It's just not the case. This is something we share. What happens then is we go from having to justify an Israeli killing a Palestinian or a Palestinian killing an Israeli to an Earthling killing an Earthling or an Earthling killing an Earthling. When we apply the Earthling function to warfare, we see that now we have to justify that. How do we justify us killing ourselves? Because that's what warfare has become. Hundreds of years ago, warfare was not a planetary problem. Hundreds of years ago, warfare was a regional problem. We didn't think in terms of planetary consciousness back then. We've come to the point here in 2024 where we are a planetary people. We know ourselves, we know that we are a planet. And as demonstrated in the 20th century with World War I and II, warfare is now a planetary problem. World War III is an existential threat, meaning literally if World War III occurs, more than likely every Earthling on the planet dies. That's a problem. How do we solve it? We start thinking in terms of the Earthling function. We apply the Earthling function to these problems. No amount of political meandering, no amount of technological progress, no amount of religion, no amount of anything is going to solve the problem of warfare unless we realize that we are Earthlings. This realization is the key, because what the Earthling function will allow us to do is to create a shared identity amongst ourselves. A shared identity means we will have a common cause, namely operating this planet together as Earthlings. So there's not going to be a treaty or a group of politicians or a technology that solves these problems. These problems are going to be solved by all of us together, all around the planet, realizing this, realizing and comprehending that our primary identity is an Earthling one. Only then will we be able to apply the technology and the political will towards solving these problems. Because remember, when an Israeli is killing a Palestinian or a Palestinian is killing an Israeli, what's really happening is an Earthling is killing an Earthling. We are all brothers and sisters on this planet. We are sharing this planet together. Another example, just while we're here, apply the Earthling function to child hunger. Starving African child or starving Ugandan child, we can justify that. We can say that hundreds of years of colonialism and broken governments and warlords and living in subtropical Africa where sometimes there are floods and famines, etc., etc., etc. Here where we're comfortable in America, we can justify the starving African child. When we apply the Earthling function, that child becomes a starving Earthling child, one of our own children. Okay? That's the level of thinking and the level of comprehension that we need to start building into our worldviews. Only then can we start solving these problems. Planetary problems require planetary solutions. Again, I'm not advocating for world government. I'm not advocating for the dissolution of nations. Nothing of the sort. I am advocating that we all start putting it into our heads that we are Earthlings sharing and operating this planet together. Until we do that and believe that and approach our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day problems with the idea that we are all Earthlings together on this planet, we are going to continue to experience the same types of problems that we have experienced up until this point. So all that I humbly ask is that next time you read a headline about the Ukrainian-Russian war, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, starving children, disease, natural disasters, all I ask is that you take whatever sub-identity is in the headline and you replace it with Earthling. And then you think about that problem that's happening in terms of Earthlings, not in terms of Israelis or Palestinians or Russians or Ukrainians or any of that. Think in terms of Earthling. That is Earthling awareness. Using this tool, the Earthling function, will allow us to raise Earthling awareness and hopefully, get us out of the mess that we're currently in. Again, planetary problems require planetary solutions. So thanks for listening. I hope at the very least it represents a different way of thinking. We'll go deeper into this at a later date, Understandably, it's hard for me to find the time to get to these videos. But again, basic overview of the Earthling function.